Hello and welcome. You are watching Sansad TV and I am Amitabh Kant. When India started its formidable national digitalization exercise quite recently, just about 6 years back, there was considerable skepticism. Building a digital infrastructure for a country of over 1.3 billion people to facilitate efficient governance was unprecedented. But today, India is not only highly regarded for digitally empowering its people through affordable data and powerful backend systems, but also for leveraging comparative advantage through rapid digitalization. This digitalization process has achieved inclusive growth, be it by bringing people within the formal financial fold or providing the best health and education, or even increasing productivity. With much foresight, the Government of India built innovative mission mode programs like PMJDY, public digital platforms like the UPI, public digital goods like India Stack, e-marketplace, eNAM, and the DigiLocker. It is this bedrock of digital infrastructure that allowed us to curate digital solutions for our fight against COVID-19. The digital platform CoWIN accelerated our vaccination drive. Today, we have completed over 90 crore vaccinations, an unprecedented digital healthcare feat. Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission is transforming our healthcare, giving everyone unique health IDs and access to seamless health services. There will be similar developments in education and agriculture. Riding on these massive efforts, Indian consumer digital economy will be valued at over $800 billion by 2030. And this stupendous growth has been powered by innovators and entrepreneurs who have been mainstreaming digital services to every single Indian in this world. No surprise, therefore, that India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. And this movement has been driven by many of our very dynamic entrepreneurs. We have three of our most dynamic and innovative entrepreneurs here. Let me start with Kalra, who was really the first unicorn from India. He's been the driver of growth of many of India's travel tourism startups. He's driven Make in India, he's driven Red Bus, he's driven Go Ibibo, and has really been a key driver of sustainable tourism in India. His passion for travel, tourism, and startup, and education, and many more fields has really driven the startup movement. We also have with us Falguni Nayar. She's a rare women unicorn in India and has really revolutionized the e-commerce movement in India. She's really driven the beauty movement in India amongst the Indian women and has really driven women entrepreneurship in a very, very major way. And Nithin Kamath, really the youngest of the lot, but he's an amazing person in many ways. He's really provided Indians an inclusive movement of driving stock broking. He's taken them to Indian households. He has over 7 million clients today. Look at his penetration. Almost 15% of the retail trade in India is driven by Zerodha, which he drives. But more than that, he's passionate about Rain Matter. And through the Rain Matter, which is a tech incubator, he's now driving climate change through young entrepreneurs of India. So three of our most prominent, the most dynamic, and the most innovative startups driven by three of the most fascinating entrepreneurs of India. So let me first start with the youngest of them all, Nithin. Tell us all your story and how this digitalization process of India has helped you to drive Zerodha in this very vast, complex world of stockbroking.
Thanks, Amitabh, for this. So we started 2010. When I used to trade the markets before, so we thought there is an opportunity to be a better broker in this country. I think really for us the tipping point in our journey was 2016 when we could onboard customers completely online. Just to give an example, the first 6 years of our business, we had 100,000 customers. the last 4 years of the business, we have had, like I said, 6.9 million customers, right? And this is all powered only because of Aadhaar and DigiLocker, right? Because for us, the biggest challenge used to be just onboarding a customer, which was a 40-page document, and it used to take us anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks to open an account. So once we started onboarding customer digitally, as in it's quite amazing how the business grew. I mean, of course, there was products, the product got better over time, but without online onboarding, I don't think it would have been possible. Another tipping point in this journey was really allowing UPI for IPO, which was early last year, because until early last year, only banks could do offer IPOs. And from the time UPI has been allowed for IPO over the last 16, 18 months, the number of IPOs, we've been actually the largest contributor of IPO application forms in the country. And our customer base, like in the last 18 months, has gone from 2 million to 7 million, powered by, I would say mainly because of IPOs and the fact that we could leverage UPI for that. So I mean, we wouldn't have been here if not for the India stack. So I mean, proof lies in the pudding. So it's thanks to everyone in the government for making all of this happen.
Yeah. So Nithin, you talked about UPI. It's really been a fascinating story. The figures for September have just come out. Close to about 3.65 billion transaction, close to about 6.5 lakh crores worth of transactions through UPI is doubling almost every year. So it's a fascinating growth story. If it was a private company, it would probably be one of the most valued companies in the world. And therefore, it's great that these powerful platforms of India, whether it was India Stack, whether it's UPI, whether it's CoWIN now, whether it's the government e-marketplace GEM, all of them are really helping drive private sector entrepreneurship in a very, very big way. Let me turn to Falguni, because she's been a great women entrepreneur and she's really, really driven the e-commerce story in a very big way. And Falguni, what do you think? Where are we going to? Where will the e-commerce movement be? We are just at the beginning of this movement, just about 4 to 5%. And how do you see the growth of the e-commerce movement in India? And how will digitalization help this growth? And how do we make it more inclusive by making small, medium scale players, the Kirana stores, all of them join this movement?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So I think first and foremost, now there's a long-term data that digital economy is growing much faster than the overall economy. Like if we look at US, I think the digital economy is growing at 6.5% a year compared to 1.8% growth of the rest of the economy. And I think even in China, if you look at e-commerce, it's already 50% of the consumers are on the e-commerce. And for India, like you said, we are even below, we are a single digit. And we saw during COVID, that customers really embrace e-commerce, and through the lockdown, I think we kept the supply chain moving through a lot of reliance on e-commerce. So I do believe that it's a massive opportunity, and it's not just on one side, like you said, it's not just benefit to the consumer, but it's also benefit to a lot of small and medium enterprises, like even on Nykaa, where we have 6,500 vendors, of which many of them are small scale businesses, I would say almost 15%. And through this digital ecosystem today, they are getting almost all the support, whether it is financing. Today, there is financing available for MSME through the digital loan systems that we are able to create. And also they are getting access to the all India market on platforms like ours. So small businesses are able to scale up very rapidly. And I think this whole ecosystem of having access to digital marketing, having access to digital, all India markets or global markets, which is happening through digitization, is a fantastic opportunity for all businesses to grow rapidly. And like we've seen in recent times, so much of money is funding so many small new startup businesses because there is an opportunity to really tap the world. So I think it's really created an ecosystem that is going to be fantastic, not just for the consumers, but also for the suppliers to those consumers.
So Falguni, PM, the Prime Minister has talked about Make in India for the world. Do you see Nykaa capturing many global markets as well in due course?
Absolutely. What we keep hearing all the time, and not just for Nykaa, I think it's true for many of the other companies too, that the tech stack, as we call it, coming out of India are very powerful and superior. And a lot of our brand partners don't see that quality of technology platforms elsewhere in the world. So when we meet with investors, they're all encouraging all of us, the startups, to go into many other markets where they believe that the tech stacks that is being developed in India, because of the immense amount of the engineering and the tech talent that we have, is going to be really be able to serve many markets.
Yeah. Wonderful. That was a wonderful story. Let me now turn to Deep, who's actually the first person to make in India, the first driver of this whole startup movement. Make in India became a unicorn, and Make My Trip became a unicorn. And, in many cases, I keep saying that Make My Trip was the first Make in India big story. And so, Deep, you've been a driver of travel and tourism. You're a believer in sustainable tourism. COVID has impacted travel and tourism. How do you see travel and tourism making a paradigm shift? How will digitization drive this? And what do we do to make digitization the key driver? Because I really feel that the only way to grow is to go digital and to go green.
Yeah, thank you, Amitabh. And I couldn't agree more. I think the only reason, firstly, that Make My Trip has been, able to do what it has been because India really started going digital. I would actually say in 2005. So while I give full credit to UPI, and UPI, I agree with you, is a game changer. I think that platform doesn't exist anywhere else in the world, or the India stack. However, a little known story, in 2005, we had been struggling for 5 years, from 2000 to 2005, to launch our services in India and to get buyers in India. We had many lookers, but not too many bookers at that time. And what changed for us in 2005 was, again, actually, I have to thank PSU. I have to thank Indian Railways and IRCTC, because they are the ones who first got people comfortable to buy online. They got people that, listen, it's okay to pay online. You can use your credit card online. Obviously, no UPI or net banking then. But that was a paradigm shift. And then people got comfortable saying, hey, it's safe to buy online. And from 2005 to 2010, it was just 25x growth before we IPO'd. So thanks to, have to give credit where it's due, firstly. And I think we don't talk enough about it. But today, after 18, 19 months of the pandemic, where tourism, rightfully, as you said, has been devastated, I think India has shown good signs of coming back. Firstly, between first and second wave, which lasted for a while and went down, and largely again only online. Sadly, the offline players or the non-digital players could not reach their customers. That's the reality. In fact, the Indian digital buying population has probably doubled during the pandemic. From 110 million buyers, we probably have now 230 million buyers, which is more than the number of online buyers in the US of A. So I think that's huge. But post the second wave, which obviously was terrible, I think we are seeing a far more steady comeback. Today, it's well known, I think a few people have spoken about it, that domestic travel is back more than 100% of pre-pandemic levels. Now, that's pretty considerable. And it's true. Aviation has been opened up 85%. Hotels are seeing, especially at the high end, they're seeing more than 100%. International is muted because today about 25, 30 countries, are welcoming Indians who are double vaccinated. But I think it will also open up pretty soon. Now, all of this is happening digitally. There is no other way to either reach people. Firstly, how do you make your services available? I don't think people are today going out in the, let's say to the market in the same way to an offline travel agent as they would have for a holiday booking. It's all online. And the power of online today, which is the rich media that you can help people not just book a flight, which is passé. Booking a flight is the easy thing. It's something which has now become table stakes. It's booking a hotel, it's booking a weekend, it's booking a holiday. And many, I would say, small enterprises have also been brought into the fold, which hopefully we'll talk about later. So only because of one reason. And people today, Amitabh, who sat on the fence as the naysayers, pre-pandemic, that I'm not sure if this will work. Should I drop my credit card? Should I pay online? What if I'm, there's a problem? That is again something which is passe. People are completely over, they're saying this is the only medium that works. People, and no one goes back. I've seen in my experience, it's a one-way street. Once you've interacted and once you've transacted online, typically the experience is good. It's very convenient. It's very safe. And you can do it 24/7 from the comfort of your couch. Why would you go and do the same thing in the earlier way or the physical way? So I think it's a game changer in many respects. And even for travel and tourism, it's the only way we will come back post-pandemic.
Yeah. No, Deep, I still recall, when I used to travel as a young officer, you had to go to the Air India office and wait for about an hour to get your chance, an opportunity to actually book a ticket. And what a paradigm shift it has been since then. When we started the Startup India movement in 2016, it was launched by the Prime Minister. And at that time, I'd never anticipated that you'll have a scenario where Zomato will go for its IPO in India and will be oversubscribed by 34 times. So that has been the massive journey of the Indian startup movement. So I really wanted to ask Nithin that how do we make every Indian be an active player in participating in the startup IPO journeys of India? Why should they not really contribute to the growth and progress of startup rather than expecting funding to come in from across the shores?
Right. No, I mean, there is a lot of interest today because a lot of wealth is getting created in the startup ecosystem, a lot more than what's happening in the public market ecosystem. So I think Zomato that way is going to lead this. I think it'll drive a lot of startups to think of Indian public markets now much earlier than what they would have thought otherwise. So I think the top 1-2% of India, I think they're just waiting for startups to come list now, and hopefully startups will start listing earlier than later. So there is a lot of wealth creation that can happen to Indian investors there as well. I think on the other side, the folks who are not in the top 2-3% of India's population, I think what is required there is, I think, more an advisory kind of a play, and whatever the rails that are getting in place because of the account aggregator, the Samity account aggregator ecosystem thing. I think it's just a matter of time before you have like an advisory ecosystem on top of the bank or investments, etc., which can then enable players like us to actually go reach out to the rest of the country who can potentially invest. Because today, a lot of folks are sitting on the fence because they don't understand stock markets. It seems complex, and it's very tough to advise digitally, right? Because it's very tough to firstly gather data. People have multiple bank accounts, multiple demat accounts, mutual funds, provident fund, whatever, right? So now that once you start getting access to all of this data in one place, I think you can actually build this whole advisory play, which can then be used to reach out to the next potentially 700-800 million Indians, who can potentially invest in the markets, but are not 70-80 million Indians who are not currently investing in the markets.
Okay. Nithin, I'll come back to you a little later. I wanted to learn more about your tech incubator and what you're doing for climate change, and how you are incubating many other startups. But let me turn to Falguni, because she's a great women entrepreneur. And how do you think we can bring in many more startups through women? And how do we create many more unicorns like Nykaa through women entrepreneurship?
So yeah, it's a very interesting question, Amitabh. I have seen a lot more young women jump into entrepreneurship. So there is clearly an increase in entrepreneurial, women chasing entrepreneurial dreams. I think what is needed is a whole ecosystem of support for women, which is very, very important. And this starts with pretty much everything. It starts usually at home, where they need some amount of support system. Secondly, it starts with education. It also starts with, learning to balance between work and home. Also, and also how to prioritize and choose priorities in life and move ahead. And, I always call it that they must learn to dream and, I think very often the barriers are in our mind. And every time I'm talking to a group of women, I always start with saying that if you can learn to dream, and pursue your dreams, I think there is a very favorable ecosystem. I think the Indian, society, as well as also the industry is very supportive of women. And I think if we were to go down this path of, changing the mindset, I think we may see a lot more women ahead. And then, of course, to that, you have to add, the angel investing, giving them the initial risk capital, then also more mentorship, and then further on to, access to capital. And I think if we fix all of this, there's no reason why we should not see more women. I always joke about it that women hold half the sky, so why there should not be equal representation everywhere?
Sure. So Deep, the India stack journey and the UPI journey, we've talked about it here, but there's also the story of the goods and services tax, actually, which is totally digital. There's the Ayushman Bharat scheme where there's a health insurance of 500 million Indians. It's more than the population of America, Europe, and Mexico put together, which is totally paperless, cashless. It's totally digital. You can move from Tamil Nadu to Bihar and carry it. The government e-marketplace is totally digital. And then you have CoWIN, which has driven this vaccination of 90 crore Indians. It's totally digital, verifiable, it's linked to your Aadhaar, it's linked to your passport. And this digitization journey and this story of platforms on the top of which private sector entrepreneurship can innovate further, as UPI has done. So you have a number of young entrepreneurs, you have Paytm, you have Google Pay, you have Phone Pay, all competing with each other. So how do we create this story in other areas? How do we do it in agriculture? How do we do it in many more areas? What should be the future of digitization be like? And how do we bring this transformation in the world of travel and tourism as well?
Yeah, no, I think we should talk about travel and tourism, and we should probably also talk about maybe health, which is the most relevant. Yeah. And, you've been at the kind of forefront of that, Amitabh. When you say COVID, I don't want to ever forget Arogya Setu and the public-private partnership and the opportunity that you gave us. And, we for us, it was game-changing in COVID for these 20 people in the company to actually work on Arogya Setu. And it was such an amazing example, I think. Similarly, I think after that, I've been thinking a lot more on the health side. And I think the health stack that's being conceptualized, or the education stack that's being conceptualized for India, is going to provide a similar platform as on the financial side. So I think the ability to abstract yourself, to think about that, and the government's done it before. I think NITI Aayog has always been kind of at the forefront of it. For UPI, you had someone like Nandan who probably came in and did a really, really fantastic deep dive job, worked with the government, in the government really, to build that. I think we'll need similar focus. So I think on education, while it's wonderful to see these massive companies come out and really, blossom during this time, and it's no secret that COVID has been actually the biggest accelerator for moving online. But we perhaps are still missing that layer or that enabler that we need, which can connect grassroots level education, district level education across the length and breadth of the company where people aren't paying. See, that was the beauty, I think, of UPI. And that was the beauty also, obviously, that's what the government is always thinking about. The rest of the 95%, right? Not the 5% or the 2% or the 10% who've already kind of, have enough and have access to private education. What about the rest? And how do we tie that up? What I find very encouraging there is that curricula is changing now. And a lot of work, again, it's amazing to see states across the country embrace new curricula and be very open to working with, not-for-profits like Central Square Foundation from Ashish Dhawan, etc., and saying, listen, let's actually look at curricula because the old curricula is passé. That, things have changed. The world has changed. You need to know some of those things, but you need to know a lot more. Today's youngster, when he comes out or she comes out of school or college, needs to know how to not only build a career online or on the internet or using technologies, but possibly build a company. And, Atal Tinkering Labs, I think, is a phenomenal example of what's going on there. So connecting the dots of people who are coming from very humble, very simple backgrounds to their dreams and aspirations. So how can they actually go there? And you start giving them something where they can start actually experimenting with, innovating with at a school level, so that tomorrow innovation is not this big, thing where you say, oh my God, I don't know how to innovate. You say, guess what? I've been innovating since I was in class 4 or 5. And, we guys had labs and we had very good labs. But that again, now that physics lab and that chem lab is a bit passé. That's changed. Today, you need to be innovating, and I'm sorry, I'm picking a bit from the Atal Tinkering Mission that we spoke about yesterday on the panel. But, when you were talking about kids experimenting with 3D printers, now that's mind blowing. And the beauty about doing it at a young age is that the mind knows no fear. Yeah. You give the same thing to someone who's already 30 and suddenly you're worried. You're worried because you're scared, you'll look silly, you'll make a mistake, you won't know what to do. And that's why a lot of people beyond a certain age have missed the whole tech side and they're scared of the internet. Yeah. They needn't be. Kids aren't scared. They can interact on it. So I think a lot of good work happening there. Similarly on health. So one of the most exciting things I find on health that we could do and need to do is to digitize and standardize the protocols across not only diagnostic labs, which is important because right now everyone's using their own standards. Why can't there be one standard? When you go for a regular, let's say your blood works, it has to be the same format so that it can be read by anyone. Today, everyone's using their own fancy format. Sure, some are better, but I think it's a great place to step in and to standardize and to unify that. Secondly, your health records, if they can be kept in a place where they can be accessed by doctors across the country or different doctors as you move across, all digitized, it's waiting to happen. And I know a couple of small companies doing it. A very exciting startup, Ika.care. My ex-colleague has started, so full disclosure, I am helping and supporting him from the outside. But I think it's a very exciting space to actually break. Now, coming to travel and tourism, I am a firm believer that India has got more natural resources, more legacy and more heritage than any other place in the world. We've got it all. Infra, yes, we can keep beating the stick, but the reality is infra has improved a lot. People don't really appreciate how our roads have improved. People don't know that today you can actually fly into more than 100 airports. And the UDAN scheme and the RCS, which is the regional connectivity scheme, you can do that. It's actually become, I think, 10x easier to reach remote parts of the country. The other big game changer, and that's where digital can play a role, is you want to go to places, and COVID taught us that, where you're a little away. So you're away, you're in the wilderness. Hotels aren't there because it's not viable, but that's fine. There are homestays everywhere. Today, those homestays have been brought online. So we now have about 30,000 homestays, and we are finding it's a win-win because there is no other way for that person who has a really sweet, lovely place, let's say beyond Badapani or Umiam Lake in Shillong, not just a few hotels out there, or somewhere in the Northeast or somewhere up in Ladakh, go beyond the Ladakh circuit and there are campsites and there are beautiful places out there. How does that owner, he or she, market what they've got to the rest of the world, or at least the rest of the country today? That can only happen if you have a digital presence. Once you have a digital presence, folks like us and many other travel companies can actually connect that. So I think that is happening willy-nilly. Yes, the government can play a role. I think the government did play a role even with COVID norms. So, while companies like ours were building norms for the smaller hotels like My Safety, but the government came out very quickly and said, these are the norms you have to do. And yes, different states had different protocols. There were issues on, moving across states, but they got better and better. Like you said, with COVID. Today, such an amazing feature on COVID where anyone can download their certificate. I think it took 30 seconds. So sometimes you're stuck without a certificate, boom, you do it. And you're absolutely right, Amitabh. Most other countries in the world, you can't do that. Yeah. It is something where we have gone way ahead of most other countries and digitized that entirely. We should leverage that. Yeah. We should make that the passport for travel. Yeah. We should actually incentivize people who have gone and got double vaccinated and say you can travel across barriers without any problem. If you're not, then you get into testing. Yeah. Again, digitally, no need to carry a piece of paper. Yeah. I was overseas till last week, and the entire way back, I had no paper on me except my passport. Yeah. So, and I did not need while they were fine.
Prime Minister's belief is that India can grow on a sustained basis at high rates over a long period, only if we technologically leapfrog And that's why we've started close to about 10,000 tinkering labs. We've supported a lot of incubation centers. These 10,000 tinkering labs, actually from class 5 onwards, we are providing 3D printers, we are providing Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, so that young students get used to technology and leapfrog in a very big way. But I wanted to turn to Falguni again, and I wanted to ask her about her experience in from Tier 2, Tier 3 cities and from rural areas. What has been the experience for Nykaa like from the semi-urban and the rural areas of India?
Sure. So I think at Nykaa now we offer both beauty and fashion, and we see it as empowerment for women. I think what Nykaa did differently was that, it took away that little bit of a apology if you were using beauty products. And I think women were ready to look at it that way, in the sense that for them, they got the confidence to go out in the world and do more. And I think we are seeing that at this moment over the last 2 years, the Tier 2 and 3 cities are growing faster than Tier 1. In fact, more than 60% of our business now comes from Tier 2 and 3. And the growth is almost double of the Tier 1 city growth. So clearly with the infrastructure that Deep also earlier talked about, because even though we are digital to get the orders, our physical delivery is physical, and the entire logistics and the infrastructure and all of that is moving so smoothly, with us having information of, where has our package reached? At every point we know that in which hub it is, and we are able to give that information to the customer. And the customer is able to track the package and it reaches them on time. So with this kind of connectedness of physical delivery, as well as, and we deliver throughout India within 3 to 4 days, and of course in big cities next day. So I think with that kind of a service, customers are really ready to embrace all the products. And we started with saying what is available in the big metro cities should be available to rest of India. So it has led to big democratization. We talk about it as democratization of beauty and fashion. And that is giving a lot of confidence to women in other tier cities to really, embrace, be more confident. And like even Deep talked about that, all of us have conversion of 5 to 10%. So what happens is we put a lot of content out there. So we are educating 100, even though only 5 or 10 buy from us. And all this is possible because digitally the cost of education and all is so minimal that we are able to educate widely. There is no charges for any kind of, advice, training, everything that we do. And that's giving women a lot of confidence to step out with confidence, to embrace whatever life they want outside their homes.
So Falguni, this story is one of really empowering the women citizens in Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. And I mean, imagine all of them are ordering digitally from rural areas, from Tier 2, Tier 3 cities. So huge amount of empowerment for them to order beauty products from Nykaa. That's the great story of India. And, Nithin, I was quite amazed to learn that you have this great incubator which you run, the tech startup, which you do, Rain Matter, and then you focus very strongly on climate change as well. Can you tell us a little bit more on how you are assisting and supporting other startups?
Sure. Yeah, so for us, it was kind of obvious very early on that the real problem to solve in the country is to grow the capital market ecosystem. Right? It's a very shallow kind of a part market. So in 2013, we launched Varsity, which is our education initiative. I think today is probably the second or third largest around capital markets in the world. It's completely MOOC, completely free, open sourced. But then we kind of also realized that that probably the way to grow the ecosystem is to build niche platforms that can make life easier for startups to, make life easier for first-time investors in the market. So in 2016, when we started growing fast, like I said earlier, thanks to Aadhaar, we realized that if startups build niche user experiences on top of us, maybe we can actually go to a wider audience faster, right? So we opened up, I think, we're the first guys around the world to do this actually. We called it broking as a service, and we opened up a bunch of APIs that allowed startups to come build on top of us, right? And then when in the business of money, credibility is very tough, right, to gain, right? I mean, if someone has to save some money, he questions the credibility of the business, right? So when these startups came to us, we not only gave them those APIs, but we also gave them their first customers whom they could validate the product, right? So if say startups come build on top of us, we showcase the product to our customers. Our customers trust the company because we are showcasing it. So typically, in the business of money, getting to the first 10 to 50,000 customers is extremely tough, and we make it easy for these startups. So we call it Rainmatter FinTech. It started in 2016, and then when they came to us, we also realized fintech wasn't as hot as it is today, and we also realized that they needed some capital, so we started helping them on that aspect as well. So today there are 20 plus startups as part of this portfolio. Out of them, 12 startups are building niche user experiences, like someone's made it easy to buy, like a thematic investing platform. Someone has made it easier to backtest trading strategies. Someone has made a taxation portal for people who trade. A few learning platforms, and then that evolved. Rainmatter FinTech started in 2016. As we grew bigger as a business, we realized that I think in today one of the big problems around the world is concentration of wealth. And wherever that concentration of wealth is happening, I think it's important on those folks to do whatever to give back to the society. And that's how we started Rainmatter Climate in our foundation. Where we've realized that, of course, climate change is a global problem, but in India, there is also a problem of creation of livelihood. And we thought that the answer to both of them probably lie in each other. And we started helping out a lot of nonprofits. And along with that, startups were actually also working in climate change. But one of those things that one of those things that I'm really excited about to do as part of the foundation is to see if we can leverage the core competency of building a broking firm to also create a green asset of sorts, a digital green asset. I think that enabler has now been put into place with SEBI putting regulations on social stock exchange. So is there a way, can you create like this green asset, like the way people hold stocks in their portfolio? Can you get them to hold a piece of a forest? Right, or and then and if you can create enough demand for an asset class like that, can you then go? Will there be enough supply? So that's one of those longer term plays that we are looking to see if we can contribute to using the foundation.
Fascinating, fascinating because when I was growing up, I had just graduated. India was neither data rich nor was it data intelligent. There were very few opportunities. The only opportunity was to get into government and sit for the IAS exam. But today, everybody wants to do a startup rather than join the government. So there are vast number of young people, young entrepreneurs, young, bright, brilliant young Indians who want to do startups. And I wanted to ask you people as to what are the 3 tips you'd like to give to a young startup, in this era of digitalization, in the era of huge amount of data, in this era of constant change, in the era of disruption that is taking place, in the era of driving India's growth story at rapid rates. To the young people of India, what are the 3 tips you'd like to give if they want to get into this huge innovative and entrepreneurship culture of India? Let me start with you, Deep.
Yeah, firstly, Amitabh, I think I tell all young entrepreneurs, it's very exciting, but it's also, there is some risk. So whenever you get in, have a time frame in mind, not less than 4 to 5 years. I don't want youngsters to get in thinking this is going to happen in a couple of years, we'll build a great company. No, this is not Silicon Valley. And this will take time. In India, it takes time, but also to build something special, it takes time. So firstly, at least make sure that you have the stamina for 4 to 5 years, which means personally, you're willing to take that, not give up your job or not take a regular job or whatever else your opportunity cost is. So number one. Secondly, I tell them, don't be obsessed with this whole thing of getting rich quick. Don't get in for the wrong reasons. I think that's the worst reason. And I've yet to see someone who got in for that reason make it big. All the companies who are doing well were obsessed with something entirely different. They were obsessed with building a great company, a great product, a great service, a great brand, and really delighting customers on a sustained basis, on a scalable manner, the money came as a byproduct. So if you do these two, and thirdly, I think the team people don't think hard enough about. You might start to know you have to build a very inclusive kind of culture where, just like we saw in the most recent IPO overseas from Freshworks, it was delightful to see just how many young people were part of that journey. So really, you're getting everyone's sweat and toil. Build a really good, nice ESOP pool where everyone can participate in that as you do well. So there are many more tips. If I can sneak it a fourth, I'd say definitely be very analytical and study. Your data will always tell you the truth. So don't ever get carried away with the vanity metrics of just more traffic and more visitors. No, your data on conversion, your data on cost of customer acquisition, and your data on repeat. For me, these three are the most important. Keep watching them as a founder and everything will work out. So these are the 4 tips, sorry, not 3.
Okay, thanks. Thanks. Wonderful hearing that. Let me turn to Falguni because I would like her tips not merely for the startups but also for the women entrepreneurs. And what is her advice and guidance?
Yeah, so what is really close to me is to ask young women to embrace STEM education. I want to see more women in India go for STEM education, and I really want them to not have a barrier. I think for very long, women always, myself included, like if one wanted to go for science, one thought, oh, maybe it's okay to do something else. So I think that barrier that women have, and I believe it's there even globally, I think that barrier needs to be broken and more women need to embrace STEM education in today's digital world. Secondly, I think Deep seems to have spoken a lot of universal truth about entrepreneurship. So I would almost sound like I'm repeating myself, but I do say to everyone that do remember, like, long-term commitment is important. I, in fact, think it's even more than 5 years. But another thing is that entrepreneurship also gives you lots of highs and lows. And it's very important to be very even keel and not get too excited with the highs as well as not get too down with the lows, and have that energy and enthusiasm to move forward even when things are not looking good. Because I think to think that everything is going to go right from day one is not going to happen. I think there's a lot that one has to understand from a product market fit perspective in the digital world, and then the sky is the limit. We've all seen that. All of us have seen that. Once you get that right, the technology allows you to do very, very complex multiple tasks with such ease, and then ability to scale becomes very easy, which would never have been the case in a physical world. So I think there are some big benefits, but I think these are the 2 things. And the thirdly, of course, I do feel that women actually, young women go through their toughest part in life soon after starting a business. They're very enthusiastic initially, and then comes, they're still in their early careers, and then they get married and they have family. And at that point, they almost want to give up. And they start looking at things from, is it worth it perspective? And the way I look at it is that women must continue to pursue and invest in themselves. Because as they move forward, and whether they're doing work or education, they're investing in themselves. And it will be worth it for the long run. So looking at a very short-term perspective and saying, I'm so busy in my personal life, is this job worth it? Or is this education worth it? Is a very wrong way of looking at it. And I say all this because I see that in a lot of women's mind. And I would really advise them to, on these couple of things that I talked about.
So great thoughts, Falguni, because a very important point you made that women must invest in themselves. And if they invest in themselves, then they will succeed. But the other point, very important point you made was that, entrepreneurship failure also is a very necessary part of it. You're going to fail to succeed. Somehow, in the Indian culture, failure is not accepted. And parents and teachers and students themselves, everybody must accept that entrepreneurship, innovation will sometimes have failure, and those who accept failure will succeed the next time. And that's very important to make it a part of your growing up story as a startup and as an innovator. So wonderful inputs, I must say. Let me turn to Nithin. Nithin, from your experience, you are extremely young, and you've done so incredibly well. So from your experience, 3 great tips for young startups in India.
No, firstly, whatever Deep said, it's that would have been on my list. Just to add on to what Deep said, I think with whatever little experience I personally had, what I realized is that I think whatever little success I've had, one of the main reasons was because I was building a business around my core competencies. Something that I loved. Trading stock markets is something that I always did. So I think when you're building a business around something that you love, you can give it a lot more than otherwise. So one is that to firstly figure what you love to do, and then build a business around it. Second is, I think you need to, like they say, sharpen the axe before you chop wood. So if you have an opportunity to work and learn before you go out and start doing a business, I think you should. Because a lot of young folks today, just decide to do business without any experience of how it is even to work in an organization. So maybe that 1-2 years, if you spend working in a field where you're thinking of building a business, your odds of hitting it improve significantly. And third, again, I think today's world is about fast beating the slow and not really big beating the small. So it's important that I think once you start a business, you are agile and you don't act like a big business, because a lot of startups that I know, they get stuck to an idea, and even though it doesn't work, they're not nimble enough, and they end up acting like a big business. So yes, I think these 3 points.
Oh, wonderful.
Actually, if you allow me to come in,
please,
Amitabh, I'll just
please.
have one last one.
Please.
I have to say that I started Nykaa when I was 48. So one message clearly is that age is no bar. Please go ahead and have a second career and don't hesitate. That I would definitely say. I've enjoyed it, and definitely I can say I used to think that I was. I had told myself that before 50, otherwise it won't happen. But I'm glad I did it when I did it. So age is clearly no bar.
So you're saying startup
Awesome.
can be at any age. Age is not a barrier, particularly for women. They can start at any age. They should just emulate you and make a success story. Wonderful. Wonderful. So it's been such a pleasure and a delight talking to all of you. It's been a wonderful session, absolutely fascinating. It's been a great learning experience for me. The Indian digitalization story is a unique story. It's a story of government working in great partnership with some really outstanding, bright and brilliant young entrepreneurs. 3 of them here, Nithin, Falguni, Deep, have just given the story of how this story of vast number of platforms that India has created and how it has helped them to really technologically leapfrog. We are still at the beginning of this story, and in the years to come, you'll see many more entrepreneurs, many more platforms, and India becoming data intelligent to technologically leapfrog. As we do this, we'll not only transform the lives of 1.3 billion people of India, but we'll change the lives of 5 billion people of the world who will move from poverty to middle class as India continues the story of digitalization. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first thank my panelists, Nithin, Falguni and Deep, for this really fascinating discussion, and thank you all for watching Sansad TV. Thank you very much.